1899 has recently hit Netflix, and it's safe to say that the show has definitely lived up to the expectation. But it did it in a way that wasn't expected. After not only watching the show, but genuinely feeling as though I experienced the show, in the end my brain was fried, but I was extremely impressed. Delving into realms of television that we've not seen on our screens in a long while, the show took us on a journey of questioning the world that was created, the very idea around reality, and the powers that be. And it also set up the show to be able to continue on and further itself in Season 2. So with that, I thought I'd break down and explain what the reality of 1899 is in this current world, why it was a show like no other, and my overall view on if it's a show that will have longevity and be able to replicate the early success in years to come. So let's get into it. Here is the reality of 1899. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. The pacing of the show. One thing that I thought was perfect about this show was the pacing. It had a slightly shorter runtime than traditional shows in the sense that a lot of TV shows that arrive on Netflix follow the structure of around 10 episodes that are around 50 minutes in length, whereas 1899, despite feeling as though a world was created where it contained multiple layers and levels of depth, the show was only 8 episodes long. But for a show that only had 8 episodes, it felt like so much was told. In fact, I'd argue that there was no stone that was left unturned and nothing more needed to be delved into or elaborated on. The show's length was exactly what was needed. All stories wrapped up in a natural way without feeling rushed. The start of the show gave us time to learn about all of the characters, which was a tall order due to the amount of main characters in the show. The middle episodes allowed us to spend time with the captain, Maura, Daniel, and Elliot to flesh out the main overarching story and witness the ante being upped whilst seeing that Kerberos and Prometheus weren't exactly as they seemed, tying into the question of is our reality all as it seems? And the climax and ending allowed the emotional pull that we had on the main characters to reach its peak as we saw the morbid, heartbreaking reason as to why this false sense of reality existed, and the twist that occurred that meant even though Maura had escaped, she was now trapped in what could be her new reality or even a simulation inside of a simulation. There were multiple occasions where the pacing could have felt rushed or too slow. Two different ends of the spectrum. It could have gone either way. But it hit the nail on the head and created a natural pacing that felt comfortable to watch and left you wanting to see more. The layering of the environment and characters. Within the show, there were multiple different layers to what we were witnessing on screen. We saw the Kerberos ship in the middle of the North Atlantic, which as a viewer, as the ship had embarked on its journey, you thought was real. I genuinely believed the environment that was created for the first 2 episodes. It was only as the screens were introduced at the end of episode 2 that it seemed as though there was something far worse at play. I didn't know whether the Kerberos ship was a mirror of the Prometheus or if it was going to turn supernatural, but instead it turned out that there was more of a sci-fi element to it. The triangles, pyramids, and forces that were at play all contributed to this too. Even then, once we got to grips with the idea that the simulation that we were in that allowed you to see inside people's core memories was reality, and it was something that Henry was controlling, it then went another layer deeper and showed us that Kieran, Maura's brother, was actually playing a nightmarish game, where he kept her trapped inside of an infinite loop where she forgot all memories and had to find a way to navigate herself out. Then even once we figured that out and that was done, and she did manage to escape, we saw her in outer space in a new reality, which I believe is still another simulation. So there were many different layers, but we didn't get lost along the way. The level of layers to the environment, tone, setting, and journey allowed us as the audience to feel as though we were on board the Kerberos, witnessing everything that was unfolding on screen. I felt trapped on the ship. I felt relieved when Daniel sent a virus into the program and changed the key to escape, and I also felt the vast, open, dark, empty space of nothingness as Maura was floating around in outer space. The reality of the world felt real, even though it wasn't, and I commend the show for that. With regards to the characters, the intertwined stories, the vagueness around their presence, and their connection through the traumatic pasts and wanting to escape the life that they had within Europe was definitely felt. The fact that each individual character had its own opening story before waking up on board the ship made for some real great viewing, and tied into the idea that they were hooked up to a simulation. At its core, this show was about a simulation a mother and father made to be with their dying son, but it went wrong. Where whilst she was in there, her brother had overwritten the code and made it a torturous world of being stuck. The complexity to this show and the fact that different layers exist impress me and contribute to it being something that I enjoyed watching. The themes of the show. The main theme of the show being focused on trying to outrun a past that you physically and mentally cannot leave was personified really well by the Kerberos ship along with the Prometheus, and the several other attempts failing to arrive at New York. We saw everybody trying to run away from their past and failing to do so, and even though these memories were pushed to a place that you never really go to, under your bed in the corner, it was still present and accessible and impacting them in their current form. We even saw Maura, somebody wanting to hold on to something in the present and failing to do so, not allowing the past to become the past. Another main theme of the show was focused around reality and is all as it seems. Is the world that we live in and the reality that we deem to be in front of us correct? The very idea that the brain has a limitless amount of knowledge and being wider than the sky and deeper than the sea, as was mentioned in the opening episode, going on to conclude in the finale with Maura being in space in a forever expanding universe, was the perfect picture and a great way to close the show. We saw the layers of people controlling and manipulating the world that we saw on screen. Maura, Henry, Kieran, and there could well be somebody above Kieran. The show came with some real thought-provoking messages, topics, and themes that even now, long after I've watched the show, it's making me second-guess and think about things that weren't previously on my mind. Can the success be replicated? I personally feel as though the success of the first season of the show can be replicated moving forward. With the simulation being an infinite loop that Maura had escaped, and now with the fate of Daniel and the others lying in her hands, the new simulation that she's in could now be a new setting that season 2 of the show could be based around. Kieran is the mastermind behind the world and is essentially God, but as we heard Henry mention in season 1 of the show, what if it continues on and everything above it is some kind of simulation or controlled environment? Meaning somebody could be in control of Kieran and we could see higher powers that are able to do more and influence his environment. 1899 is a show that I feel is drastically different to many other series out there. It's thought-provoking, engaging in the sense that you're constantly questioning what's real and what's not, and your mind does genuinely feel fried after watching it, in a good way. The delivery of all of the characters, the focus on traumatic pasts and not being able to escape them, accompanied with the visual effects and score behind the scenes all complement each other perfectly, and they create an environment that feels real even when it isn't in multiple senses. I hope that we do get a season 2 of the show because I'd love to see more of the different layers that lie within reality and the false sense of reality. I welcome the simulation back. So, there you have it, the reality of 1899. If you want to see more videos such as endings explained, theories and predictions and character breakdowns, then click on the I button. Or alternatively, you can head over to my channel where you'll find them all. If you'd like to give me a show or movie that you'd like me to review, then head over to my Twitter, @brainpilot_, and tweet me what show or movie you'd like me to review next. And finally, if you'd like to see what I rate the latest movies that don't quite make the cut to getting a dedicated video, then head over to my Letterboxd profile. It's where I rate the latest releases in real time. What did you think of this show? Leave a comment down below, and don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.